Needlepoint objects tend to carry a different kind of weight in a home. Not necessarily because of what they cost, but because of the time they require, the hours, the attention, the quiet repetition, the sense that something was made slowly and thoughtfully. Today, I'm joined by Jessica Chaney from Lycette Designs, a brand that has helped reintroduce needlepoint to a new generation, bringing fresh perspective to a tradition that has been long tied to home memory and the idea of making something by hand. In a moment where so much of life feels fast and disposable, needlepoint asks us to be patient. It invites care, and in return, it creates objects that often outlive us, pieces that become part of the fabric of a home, passed down, rediscovered, and used again. In this conversation, Jessica shares the Lycette journey, the resurgence of slow craft, the difference between making and buying, and why something as simple as a stitched canvas can hold way more meaning than we expect. This was such a fun conversation. I loved hearing all about her journey, and I hope that you enjoy. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. Well, Jessica, I'm excited to chat today. I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So my name is Jessica Chaney. I own Lycette Designs, a needlepoint company with brick and mortar locations in Palm Beach, Florida and Newport, Rhode Island. We do e-commerce too. And my role is kind of evolving day to day. I founded Lycette 10 years ago. And since then, the company has now grown. I know we have over 20 employees. And so I'm constantly training and overseeing all of it. I would say that my biggest role, though, is probably design director. That's what I really love and what I'm really passionate about, and the marketing of Lycette.
Where did the name come from?
It's my great grandmother's name. So she was this amazing woman. My mom's side of the family is from Idaho in the West Coast. And so she was on Lake Coeur d'Alene in Idaho, and she loved hosting parties and loved making everyone feel welcome. So she would just like host parties all the time. And she had a charm bracelet, and you could always hear her coming from like her charms jangling. And she had pink velvet wallpaper and just like so fun and so welcoming, and didn't really give a rip what anyone thought and just did things her own way. And so I kind of wanted Lycette to be like that. And so we named it after her.
That's so fun. I have long followed your brand. I really
Yeah.
feel like you were ahead of especially because you said 10 years now,
Yeah,
right?
it's 10 years. It's crazy. I
Yeah.
literally, we were looking at like what emails to do, and I was like, actually, March is like 10 years of Lycette. And
Wow.
it's, yeah, I can't believe it.
You were really ahead of this. And I would love to hear a little bit more about why and how this came to
Yes.
be.
So I grew up with needlepoint. My mom needlepointed. My grandma knew how to needlepoint. She didn't needlepoint as much as my mom or my aunt, who went to the Royal School of Needlework in London, which is a
Wow.
thing. Isn't that crazy? So it was always around. And my mom had a group of friends who would come over and needlepoint, sip and stitch girls. And when you're younger, when your mom's doing something, you're kind of like, that's silly. I don't want to do it. But then as I got older, I really found it really cool. I horseback rode, and all the girls in the barn would stitch their own belts.
Uh-huh.
And so I started to do that, I think like 12, 13. And I went to my mom and said, have you heard of this thing called needlepoint? She was like, you're insane. Like I've been trying to get you to do that forever. So that's kind of how I started. I kept needlepointing all through high school and college. I worked at a needlepoint store during college in DC, the point of it all. We had a really bad snowstorm. I'm a Florida girl, and I was like, I cannot do this. It's so cold, it's so slushy. So I moved back to Florida. There was not a needlepoint store in Palm Beach. I decided to open one. And looking back, I think I was 27 at the time. And I really can't believe now I get so nervous about signing leases and stuff. But I think then ignorance is bliss. And so I kind of just jumped into it and was like, whatever happens, happens. And now here we are 10 years later with another store in Newport, Rhode Island.
There is something to that. I think that being naive sometimes is to your benefit. I had an event planning company before I was doing all of this, and I look back at how I was in my early 20s, and I really do think if I would have given it so much more thought and like overanalyzed it now. And I think there is something to just diving in and not knowing what you're doing that actually sometimes just makes you really successful because you are forced to figure it out and have no fears behind you.
Literally, and you're not overthinking it. And in a way, you're also not letting your ego get in the way. You don't even know. So you're like, why not just try? And when you're doing that is when you're taking more risks. And when you do that, you also set yourself up to stand out more and it's more original. And so sometimes I have to remind myself of that now, especially when since we've grown and now I feel the pressures of having a bigger team and being responsible for more people. I have to remember to get back to that place of like, okay, what really makes me tick? Because in the end, that will make Lycette more appealing to customers and more fun in general.
One of the things that I would love to hear a little bit more about because I've obviously like everybody have watched this really grow in
Yeah.
popularity. What's so fun is that you pretty early on already had the brick and mortar, which
Yes.
is almost like the backwards of what you would normally hear, right? Like where people would say, "Oh, I would maybe like test or like pilot it online and then if it got really popular, we would go brick and mortar." I love that you did it a little differently. When did you start to notice almost like this resurgence or has it ebbed and flowed and like I'm just not aware of the trend? You know what I mean? Like what has that looked like?
Yeah, so I think needlepoint is just, in my mind, it's always been popular. Obviously, I'm very biased. That's my world, so I'm just constantly tuned into that.
Yeah.
But I actually, so when I started, I did wholesale first, and I did wholesale for 2 years. I designed the canvases, and then I decided to do a brick and mortar. Looking back, I do wish sometimes that I had done the website first and build out an e-commerce platform and then do brick and mortar. But what was cool is like I said before, like ignorance is bliss. I was just kind of jumping into it. And because of that, I think we were able to make Lycette a real destination in Palm Beach. You know, now people say that they come to Palm Beach just to visit the store, which is so flattering and so cool.
So needlepoint, obviously, I am pro traditional classic design. I also love a little bit of like a modern twist. What would you argue as someone who, again, is in this world that designing with needlepoint offers that maybe like other forms of decoration don't?
So I think needlepoint is so personal and you're able to tell your story through it. You're also creating heirlooms, which I think is really cool. So from the design aspect of it, you know, I was very fortunate, along with my friend Rudy Saunders and some others, that when House Beautiful first came out with, and Emma first came out and coined the term Grand Millennial, we were in that first kind of, in that first article for it. I think that was because so many interior designers have used needlepoint. I think just because it provides a different texture. It also has a story. You know, Mario Buata really loved needlepoint. He had all the cheeky sayings or the Staffordshire dogs. It's always been a part of classic design. I went with our Newport manager and one of our designers, the Lady Derby, to England, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And of course, we had to go into all the houses and museums, and needlepoint was part of all of it. I think women's crafts are just so woven in to everyday life and living that they become a part of interior design, whether you mean them to or not. With needlepoint, it gets so personal. For example, when my son was born, I needle pointed him a pillow with his name that sits on his nursing chair. And that to me is so special. And I hope he'll keep it for
Yeah.
forever. So I think it's just a way to show what you love and showcase what you love through a craft. And then because you're able to finish it with gorgeous fabrics, it just makes it even better and more applicable to interior design.
Well, I also love that you just touched on the sentimentality part of things. It's hand stitched. So it's like there's that connect to you. Ideally, if he does keep it, right? Like mom cared enough to do this for me. This sat in my childhood bedroom, so it has this nostalgia element to it. Do you think that needlepoint is like inherently sentimental, or do you feel like it's subject to the object?
I think it's funny because I think it starts out as sentimental, but I also think people do it for themselves right now. Like we are on our phones so much that people are looking for any escape to get off your phone. A lot of needle pointers that we meet start, and new needle pointers especially, because they want to get off their phones. So they're stitching things that not necessarily because they are expecting a child or they're doing it for a graduation. They're doing it for themselves, which I think is really cool too. And so they're needle pointing more pop culture, places they've been. And so while it may not be sentimental, like for another person, like how I needle pointed the pillow for Miller, it's sentimental to themselves. And no matter what, when you look at a needlepoint project, you're reminded of where you were when you stitched that and what time in your life you were in. So I have projects that I stitched when I was in my 20s. I'm 35 now, that now I'm like, why did I stitch that? But to me then it was cool and I really loved it. And so even though I wouldn't necessarily stitch it now or use it in my interior design now. It still is sentimental. So I think no matter what, needlepoint, just because it's so woven into our lives when we're doing it, it's sentimental no matter how you use it.
This concept of probably more heirloom, right? Like you mentioned that you
Yeah.
were in England, you were seeing things in museums. Obviously, those are older. That meant they
Yeah.
lasted. So, do you feel like in kind of like this world of fast, mass-produced crap, that there's also an element of needlepoint being something where it's like, okay, this takes time.
Totally. Needlepoint is very intentional because it takes time and it also is expensive and it's an
Yeah.
expensive hobby. So it's very interesting because we have so many different kinds of people that come into the store, whether it's, different aesthetics, different ages, different backgrounds. But when they get together for a sip and stitch or they're just chatting in the store, they always have the same underlying values, which are they're very thoughtful, they're very intentional, and they're very creative. And I think all three of those things go into needlepoint. And especially in today's fast fashion, sitting down and deciding to dedicate your time to something is, I think, the greatest luxury of all. And time is the greatest luxury of all. And when you needlepoint, you're choosing to put your time towards something that is going to last beyond you. And I think that that is so special.
You get to interact with people quite a bit. I know you're not like always maybe in the store. It sounds like you do more of like the design, right? But for a
Yeah,
while, you were probably pretty forward facing until you
I
grew.
was. And honestly, it wasn't until I had my son that I kind of stepped back from retail a little bit. One, I just did not feel like I was in the mental space to be in retail,
I
running on 2 hours of sleep or 3 hours of sleep a night. Um, but also I just wanted to be able to spend more time with him and being stuck with retail hours, you can't do that. And it's really interesting because having Miller, I thought our company, Lycette, would kind of take a backseat and slow down. And it's almost grown more because I forced myself to hire more people. And they're so great at their jobs that now it's like expanded even beyond when he was
That's
born,
so
which is
exciting though,
really
too.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. Now, getting to interact with people, I'm curious if you have any conversations where because I know it's been 10 years, but are you seeing things where like things are getting passed down yet? Or where people are talking about generational heirloom items that they're creating?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's interesting owning a needlepoint company. I kind of feel like we're the, keeper of secrets. We know things
Mm.
before people's families
Yeah.
do. So customers will come in and will say, I'm having a grandchild. My daughter's having a baby and it's going to be a boy and this is the name. Can you put this on a stocking so we can start it and have it for his first Christmas? But don't tell anyone. I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone. You're good. So we kind of know those things. We know when people get married, when, they're welcoming children, when they're graduation, because we're part of all those special moments. We're creating those needle points and memories for people. So we definitely have those conversations. We also see it. Unfortunately, we do have the experience of having to say goodbye to customers when they pass away. And sometimes we have projects that, they hadn't picked up yet because they were sick. And so we contact their next of kin and give those projects to them. And that's always really emotional, but also very beautiful to see that even, ones, if their loved ones are gone, they still have this piece of them to hold on to remind them of them.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that is emotional.
It's very emotional. It's emotional, but it's really beautiful that we're able to, I think, be there for people and kind of help them when they're going through this tough time by being able to say, your mom stitched this for you. She talked about you all the time. She really loved it. She was very thoughtful with the colors and the intention behind it. And this is for you. It is really tough, though. We've had days where we're like, we're wiped after.
Kind of touching on a couple different things, which made me realize I didn't ask at the top of the episode
Yeah.
if you could kind of delve a bit more into like your offerings.
We offer, let's see if I get this right, canvases. Hand painted canvases, threads, needlepoint accessories, finishing of needlepoint, which is very big. Not all shops offer that. And that includes, and I know I'm going to leave some stuff off, ornaments, stockings, pillows, eyeglass cases, shoes, handbags, because everything in needlepoint is hand done. The sky's kind of the limit. So we can kind of make anything happen within reason. If we can't do it, we'll refer you to someone who can.
I've seen the canvases, but are you saying like I love this canvas and so I just want to make this and then like when I finish it I'll figure out what I want to do with it, or are they coming into it like I want a new bag?
It's interesting because it's like 50-50.
Okay.
Like some people will come in and are super ambitious and I love it. And they'll say, I want my first project to be a pair of Stubbs and Wooten needlepoint shoes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, I've done two of those, so
Yeah.
bless. But then there are other people who come in and they say, I saw the I would prefer not to canvas, and I don't know what I want to make it into yet, but like I want to stitch that. It's kind of 50-50 with how people are drawn to needlepoint and why they want to pick it up.
Is the value in the finished piece or is it in like the act of making it? Do you feel?
I think it depends on what the customer values. For me, I really love just the art of needlepoint and stitching. Like I'm a very anxious person and very scattered. I think being a little more creative, my mind is always buzzing. And so it's really hard for me to feel centered and to feel focused. And when I'm needle pointing is when I feel like I can really calm my mind even more than reading or, some other hobbies I have. And I'm really grateful for that in needlepoint.
You're touching on this calm energy again, which you mentioned before. People are sort of craving this
Yeah.
slower paced craft or experience. So, do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Because I feel like that's probably some storytelling that you hear about too.
Yeah. So needlepoint is great for mental health. It's also fabulous because for me personally, I love to check things off a to-do list.
Mm.
And with needlepoint, my friend Rudy compares it to pressure washing in that when you're pressure washing, you like see it getting done and it's
Yeah.
like kind of addicting. So maybe that's not like the chicest comparison, but I love that
No, but
comparison.
it's such a mental, like you can totally understand it.
Part of why I like needlepoint too is because when you're doing it, you see it getting done. And so you feel like amazing, I'm being so productive. So, especially if you are part of the generation, which I think I am, being a millennial, where you're like addicted to productivity, it really kind of makes it so that even when you feel like you're being productive, you're secretly taking time for yourself
Yeah.
and doing something to take your mind off your emails or your to-do list or your chores or all that kind of stuff. I mean, also, I'm not sure if you relate to this, but after I had Miller, I feel like he ate half my brain in utero, and I
Oh yeah.
can't like
I'm
think as well of
rocks for
forgetting.
brains and what happened. Yeah.
Right. Like I look at my husband and I'm like, what's your name?
Yeah.
With needlepoint, it really just lets me zone out and not focus on anything in particular, which is really a freeing feeling.
Well, and I think for anyone right now, like even if people are listening and they're not in the situation that you and I are in right now, we are so overstimulated, no matter what your situation is, like you are in some capacity overstimulated. There's too much information for you to access. Like there's too much of everything right now. And I think one of the reasons I'm drawn to needlepoint is
Yeah.
because there is just this piece to it. There's an intentionality. It encourages slowness. It's still creative, which I think is like a really big part of this. There is, I think, something gratifying about being part of creating your own, I don't know if product is the right word to use, but your own project.
There's things that I haven't even touched on yet, which is like the community behind needlepoint. I don't know if you stumbled upon needlepoint TikTok, but
It
it's
has
like,
stumbled upon me, and
yeah,
I think it has found
I've
me.
been, you've been served it from your
Yes,
Google searches, I'm sure.
and I love it.
Um, yeah, there's like so much community. It's crazy. I mean, our sip and stitches are so popular in Palm Beach and Newport. And while we don't do it, there are other needlepoint shops across the country that do retreats that people go on. I know some of my mom's friends went on like a boat cruise in France where they just needlepointed the whole time. And that was put together by a needlepoint designer. So
Wow.
everyone should do needlepoint. There's just
Yeah.
like such great benefits to it.
Well, the other fun thing is that there's not a ton of hobbies where you can kind of like do your own thing and still be part of a community.
I mean, I was talking with my husband the other day, and there's this whole like black cat, golden lab thing on social media. Have you seen that? Your energy is either lab,
Um,
like you're like really love people, or you're black cat.
okay,
And so I was telling him I always thought I was a lab, and he's like, you're a black cat. And I was like, yeah, I know, I'm a black cat. So what I really love about needlepoint is like, yeah, you can make it a community thing, but you can also do it by yourself. So I'm a little more introverted, and when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I really need to retreat sometimes. And while it is fabulous to be able to go to a sip and stitch or hop on a Zoom with some of my girlfriends and needlepoint, I really love that in the busiest moments, I can just, and I've been guilty of it, go to my office and feel more grounded and feel like I'm coming back to myself.
do you also feel like it teaches any lessons? Because I feel like if I, as someone who loved, I'm a history person,
Love.
and I have always liked obviously to study the past. And one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is always like these domestic, like the way domestic life has transitioned and looked over time.
Yeah.
And obviously, needlepoint was a very big part of ye olden times, but I also see that it was sort of a skill that was taught not just for the skill, but because you're forced to be patient, to pay attention.
No, I think needlepoint does teach some very valuable skills, and patience probably being the biggest thing. And also, I'm the kind of person that when I start a project, I'm like, I want it done yesterday. Why isn't it done? Whether it's needlepoint or a business project or a house project. And needlepoint, especially when you're doing a big canvas, you look at it and you're like, okay, this isn't going to get done overnight, but if I do a little bit each day, I'm going to get it done. And that to me is the biggest life lesson of all, is
Yeah.
that if you have something that you really want to do or a goal you're working towards, just do a little bit each day, make it manageable, and you're more likely to finish it then but then trying to get it all done at once and burning yourself out. Consistency is the biggest key to success, and I really think needlepoint's taught me that.
Now, you've been doing this for so long, so it's not like it's something that you picked up later in life, but do you feel like it has at all changed your relationship with time, or do you hear that other people are, like from other people talking to you, do you hear anything along those lines?
I think it teaches us all to slow down a little more and be more present, which I think we really need, especially with social media today, even when we're in the moment. And
Mhm.
I'm so guilty of this, especially owning a business and doing social media for it. You're thinking, how am I going to capture this so I can post it in the future? And needlepoint kind of forces you to be in the moment. And I've heard that from a lot of people, and it goes back to the mental health aspect of it and being grounded and just being really, really present and intentional with your time.
I want to just go back to the design of it all for a
Yeah.
hot second because you have all these canvases. Are you designing the canvases?
So I don't design all of them anymore, but when I started, I did design them. My background is marketing and then fine arts. That's what I studied in
Okay.
college. And so I did painting and all that, and I did design for the first 2 years all of Lycette's canvases. Then as we started to grow, I began to notice artists that I thought their work would be amazing on needlepoint. And so we started to represent other artists or people like my friend Rudy or Kelly, the Lady Derby, who they design needlepoint themselves, but they didn't necessarily want to do a store or do the business side of it. So we represent their artwork and sell that to customers. So it's not just me anymore. We have a plethora of artists we represent and also a bunch of collaborations coming out, which is really cool.
You have a really fun blend of traditional
Yeah.
things that would be more like your son's pillow, things that
Right.
are like more heirloom. And then you also have more like the fun cheeky. So,
Yes.
what has been your balance? Where has that decision come from? Like, what is that more like you're meeting the needs of the client? What's that process?
The process is selfishly that's what I like. So
Well, it's working for you.
I try to do that. I grew up in a house, and my mom was, and my grandmother too, was very passionate about design and history. My grandma was a docent in museums, and so I always grew up going to museums and going to antique stores and learning about design. So I really do have a passion for the traditional aspect of it, but then I also have a very naughty sense of humor. So I like to bring that in as well. And I always think of Mario Buada and the cheeky needlepoint pillows he had. I think with interior design, it's always good to have something that starts a conversation, especially if you're hosting. You want someone to be able to walk into your house and ask you about something and kind of break the ice a little and make them feel comfortable.
Yep.
A needlepoint definitely does that.
Do you find that simply owning something like, say, we're talking about a pillow and it's cheeky, do you
Yeah.
find that simply owning that and having it out is keeping a space from feeling like stuffy or overly traditional, or is it in the design of?
So I really love personally when someone does a really cheeky pillow, but it's like in very traditional colors.
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
double check,
so
you have to
fun.
like look again.
Yeah, you literally do a look double. Or like my friend Rudy did this, I forget where he found it, but it was this portrait of George Washington pillow, but he did it in all these bright saturated colors and it came
So
out
fun.
so pop arty and so Andy Warhol-esque. And so I think it's really fun to do that play on traditional and modern. He took a very traditional canvas and made it more modern with colors, but I really love also taking very cheeky canvases and then doing them in more traditional colors. So it's kind of playful and you have to look twice at it.
I do love that. That is fun.
Yeah.
This may or may not apply. I'm just making
Yeah.
assumptions here. But do you collect needlepoint pieces that you are not creating?
So for needle pointers, you have what is called a stash. And that's basically a bunch of canvases that you find that you are very aspirational towards finishing, but you may not necessarily do that. So, I know some people who have hundreds of canvases in their stash. Part of needlepoint is buying the designs. And I have canvases in my stash that I have had since I was like 15 that I just haven't finished because I haven't felt called to them, or like I used a thread that I didn't like at the time and I'm like feeling too lazy to rip it out. But no, I turned to Greg, my husband, the other day and was like, I don't think I'm gonna finish all these canvases, in my lifetime. And he was like, yeah, no, duh. Of course you're not. You have three rugs in your stash and you haven't started one of them. I was like, okay.
We're
But
just looking for a nod or an acknowledgement. We did need commentary.
no, I wanted you to say you are Superwoman, you're capable of everything, you can do
We're
it.
totally gonna have all of those rugs in this home one day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, people just collect needlepoint, and I definitely do that. I love to visit needlepoint stores when I travel.
Needlepoint being something that is obviously made by hand, kind of going back for a second to that
Yeah.
conversation, but one of the things I talk about a lot here is like the future and legacy. And so sort of on my mind is what does the future of this look like? But also if we're talking about craft as a whole,
Hmm.
obviously needlepoint is thriving and doing very
Yeah.
well. Do you think outside of needlepoint, and this is where I don't know like how involved in this world you are or not, or
Yeah.
what you follow or don't follow, but do you feel like the habit of making things by hand is coming back into play, that people are caring about it just as much as needlepoint, or do you feel like needlepoint is kind of isolated in that? I don't know if that's
No.
anything that you're seeing.
No, I think people who needlepoint are not just stuck on needlepoint. For instance, I have not yet started knitting, but I've bought knitting threads because I fell down knitting TikTok. There's also scrapbooking TikTok. There's all these things that I think people are just looking to escape, like you said, all the distractions, all the noise. And so I think as technology continues to grow, we're going to see more of a return to handcrafts and using your hands, and also more of a return, as weird as it sounds, to traditional brick and mortar retail spaces where men and women can meet up to do these crafts in person together and form a community.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I also feel like there's way more of a push to like meet in person again. We talk about it like it was because of COVID, and I think COVID, obviously, it was
It like exemplified it.
yeah, but I think it was bigger than that, right? It's like
Yeah.
everything turned to the internet, everything became virtual, everything was online. I do feel like people are like, wait, I actually just need to like breathe the same air as other humans for a hot second. I am seeing more businesses opening, which is so fun.
Mahjong or needlepoint. In the past, we've done cooking classes at Sur La Table, and there's nothing more exhilarating, I think, than meeting other people that you share a connection and share values with, and you have the same interests. And I think we're really missing that. As much as you can talk over the internet or you can connect in those ways, it's not the same as meeting in person.
Yeah.
And so when we do host these Sip and Stitches, one of the coolest things is seeing like the genuine friendships that come out of it. So people will meet at Sip and Stitch, they'll exchange numbers. We'll see they'll post that they're like grabbing coffee and they're like friends now. And I think that that's so cool that on top of being able to spread the joy of needlepoint, Lycette has kind of become a meeting space for people who share similar values and just like want to make friends. I think that's just so different and fun.
I think it's almost fun that people can do their own thing and yet together because then it sparks additional conversation about like, well, what are you working on? And like I just think it's like we're not all doing the same exact thing necessarily. Like there's more conversation to be had and then there's storytelling to it.
When you say that, where my mind goes to first is whenever I'm traveling on a plane specifically, a stewardess will never be nicer to you than if you're needle pointing because one, they needlepoint a lot traveling, but two, it gives you something to like bond over and talk about. Someone's not going to go past you watching something on your iPad or laptop and be like, "What are you watching? What are you doing?" But if you're needle pointing, they're going to ask, what are you doing? And you can say, "I'm needle pointing." "Oh, why are you doing a belt?" Or "What does that design mean to you?" Or "What are those icons?" And it just opens up a natural conversation
Yeah.
and a way to approach people that feels very friendly and non-invasive.
I was just about to say it's not intrusive. It seems like it's more inviting, which is great.
Exactly. Unless you're needle pointing something super, super cheeky, which I would not do
Yeah.
that
They
on
would be like,
public
oh.
record. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to also ask on the subject of sharing. You
Yeah.
touched on this a little in speaking about sort of like what people are coming in for. Could we talk a little bit about the sorts of projects that are more heirloom quality that you're seeing people making for others?
So I always love to tell the story of what my mom did, which I am going to do for Miller as well, which is every year she needle pointed me an ornament, and on the back it would be monogrammed the year that she needle pointed it. And it would either have to do with, a trip we took or what my favorite interest was that year. And then when I got married, she gifted me all those ornaments so that my Christmas tree would be full the first year that we were married. So that's just a really good example of an heirloom and something that's going to be passed on. I'm going to give that to Miller. A lot of people needlepoint stockings, ring bearer pillows, frames. I mean, anything can really be personal if there's intention and a story behind it. Even though you would think maybe shoes wouldn't be an heirloom piece, we know a lot of brides who needlepoint them for their grooms on their wedding day, and then they walk down the aisle in that, and that becomes part of your family story. Any part of needlepoint can become an heirloom.
I'm hearing that these are things that are valued and yet they're valued because they're out or they're
Oh,
used or they're
totally.
seen. And so it just feels like what does like using the good things, quote unquote, look like in the world of
Yeah.
needlepoint?
So for me, it's displaying your needlepoint pillows. I don't believe in being precious with anything. I believe in using your wedding china. I believe in bringing all these things that are supposed to be, like you said, saving it for a special occasion, bringing them out into our everyday homes and experiencing them with people we love. And needlepoint is definitely part of that. Like I touched on before, like needlepoint is expensive. It takes time. And sometimes when you think about how much time you put into it, maybe you would say, I don't want that pillow on the couch. Like the dogs are going to get on it. My son may spill juice on it. But to me, that just becomes part of the story of it and part of its life. And so I always say, like, put your needlepoint pillow out. Like, worst comes to worst, we have it redone. You bring it to the dry cleaner. But you do these things to live with them and have them become a part of your life and your story and to experience them with people that you love.
You've mentioned rugs. So I am curious if you have a favorite project and then if you also like what your biggest project has been. Probably asking you to pick a favorite child, but
No, I'm just laughing because I think needlepoint is kind of like it changes based on my mood, what my favorite project is.
yeah, that's fair.
I will say my favorite project now and what I can see for the immediate future is I needle pointed a frame that is on my bedside that goes with my decor in blue colors, but it holds a newborn photo of my son. And that to me is so special. And I smile every time I look at it. So that's my favorite project. My biggest project, I've done some really big pillows. I do want to do a rug. As I said, I have three in my stash. But the coolest thing I've seen from a customer is she needle pointed two headboards, twin headboards. I know.
Like,
Is
what
that
is
not
it like
okay?
to be talented? I don't understand. I can't even
Well,
imagine.
for me, I was just like, how do you hold that? That's like really big. Two huge headboards. I mean, they were twin, but like that to me is
I
like very big.
mean,
Yeah. And we have
I couldn't needlepoint a doll headboard. Like, what do you
No,
mean?
yeah. I also just like get bored of projects. So I'm like, how did you like keep that up? That's also like a lot of background. I think it kind of goes back to just taking off a small section at a time and doing it. And she said that she like broke it up with ornaments and other things, but that she always came back to it. And it only took her a few years, which was wild to me. But
Wow.
now it's such a statement piece. And when I walked into that guest room, I was like, this is so cool. Like, get AD in here right now.
Yeah. That is amazing. Kind of, again, going off of legacy, but also just like feeling and you being such a personal brand.
Yeah.
What is it that you hope people are taking away from getting your products, working with you?
I hate feeling being sold to.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm really doing this because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone on my set is the same way. They're needle pointers, and if they're not needle pointers when they join the company, they quickly pick it up and then we're all needle pointing. I just authenticity, I think, is something that is very, very important to me. And I try to find that in other companies. And I really hope that people can feel our authentic love for needlepoint when they're with Lycette, and that we really try to have the best customer service and help people and make needlepoint feel as approachable as possible. And that's really my goals for Lycette.
The true like last thing I want to
Yeah.
ask you is how people can find you. And I will add that I will put links to everything that you mention in our
Yeah.
show notes so that they can just find it right there.
So we are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, we are on Pinterest. I really love Pinterest, so I would say don't sleep on Pinterest. There's lots of finishing inspiration. You can visit us in our at our Palm Beach location, at our Newport location, and also online. And if you have any questions, please reach out to help@lycettedesigns.com because we really want to be a resource for everyone.
Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I am just so inspired by your story and what you're doing. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.